Hello and greetings, ladies and gentlemen of the trigonometry class. Today we're going to learn how we can plug in some of these trig functions and all their fun partners into our calculators. So if you have not yet done so, please go ahead and get out your graphing calculator. Pause the video if needed. Once your graphing calculator is out, I need you to go ahead, press the mode button. And then once you've pressed the mode button, make sure this third line down says that you are dealing with dealing with degrees instead of radians. Make sure we are dealing with degrees instead of radians. All right, so once that's settled, do a quick little check and just punch in these values: sine of 30, cosine of 48, try rad 2 over 2 using parentheses properly, of course, and just make sure that we're getting these values up here on the side. If you're not getting those numbers, then either we're goofing with our parentheses placement, or we might be set in the wrong mode. Again, set it in degrees, not in radians. All right, so let's get into some nitty-gritty stuff. First up, dealing with degrees and minutes. Right here, I have some angle, 39 degrees and 18 minutes. So that 18 with a little apostrophe, that's really saying 18 minutes. Just like hours and seconds and minutes, these degrees can be split up into further pieces. So we can split it into minutes and seconds to kind of get more and more accuracy out of it. We're kind of at a point now, especially with technology, where we can just throw in these things in decimal form. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you guys how to plug this into your calculator in degrees and minutes. It's kind of, it's not necessarily a hassle, but you do have to kind of press some buttons and go a little bit out of your way. Or I'll show you guys how to do a quick conversion to convert minutes to degrees or decimal degrees and get your answer a bit quicker. So first thing we're going to need to do is find the angle button, because right here you can see we're dealing with the angle menu. Well, that button is going to be right over here in yellow. Some of you who have the newer calculator models, this is the TI-83. If you have a newer TI-84, your color might be different, right? But it's still going to be something that we have to use the second button to get to. Once you get to the angle menu, you'll see option 1 is degrees. Option 2 is minutes. When you're in this menu, you can evaluate anything you need. So go ahead, take a second, punch in tangent of 39 degrees and 18 minutes, just to make sure we're getting the proper value. Pause this video right here if you need to take a second to do that. Now, we could say that, hey, you know what, maybe I don't want to convert, or maybe I don't want to jump through the hoops of my calculator and find that menu with all that stuff, so we can convert instead. Well, 39 degrees and 18 minutes means we have 39 whole degrees and then some decimal amount of degrees. So to figure that out, I'm going to take my minutes, in this case it was 18, and I'm just going to divide it by 60, because after all, there are 60 minutes in 1 degree. So if I ever need to convert minutes to degrees, I'm just going to divide by 60. Well, 18 divided by 60, if I go to a calculator, that's going to give me 0.3. So I have 39 whole degrees and 0.3, I guess, partial degrees or decimal degrees. Now, there will be times where we have to evaluate reciprocal functions. Unfortunately, our calculators do not have secant or cotangent buttons. However, they do have sine, cosine, tangents. And one thing that I know about secant, cotangent, and cosecant is that those are just reciprocal functions. And what I mean by that is that the cosecant of some angle, well, that's the reciprocal of sine. That's just going to be 1 divided by sine of that angle. Because after all, to find the reciprocal, you're just flipping a fraction upside down, or you're putting it underneath a 1. So the reciprocal of cosecant is sine, and vice versa. We would have secant of theta. That's the same as 1 over cosine of theta. And then lastly, we would have cotangent, COT, and that's reciprocal, of course, would be tangent. When we go to a calculator, all we have to do is type in 1 over cosine in place of secant. or 1 over tangent in place of cotangent, or 1 over sine in place of cosecant. Now, what if we don't know the angle that we're actually trying to input? Rather, they tell us the ratio or the decimal answer that we should have as a final answer. So in this case, we have theta is unknown. We have no idea what the angle they're even talking about is. So if theta is unknown, we have to use what's called inverse trig functions. Now, inverse trig functions are going to be sine with a little -1, cosine with a little -1, or tangent with a little -1. Those buttons can be found directly above your sine, cosine, and tangent buttons on your calculator. You'll just have to press the second button before you can access them. So they're going to be in a little different color font. So for this one, I'll go ahead, I'll walk through the cosine. Right now, we have no idea what the theta is, but they tell us that it should equal 0.1386. So what I can do is that I can actually flip these two. I can flip-flop their position. But in doing so, cosine will now be the inverse. So the inverse cosine of 0.1386 will equal theta. This is now in a format that can go straight into my calculator. And according to this guy right there, we should be getting 82.03, stuff. So my final answer here would be 82.0331 degrees, and that is the measure of theta. If I really wanted to, I could always go back and I could double check this by typing in cosine of 82.0331, and I should get something pretty dang close to 0.1386. All right, home stretch, last part. Next up, we have cotangent, a reciprocal function of an unknown. We have cosecant, another reciprocal function of an unknown. So right here, we have an unknown angle. So our theta is a mystery. Our angle is a mystery. Well, hopefully we recall from the previous slide, that means we have to use inverse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to think, all right, cosecant, well, that's the reciprocal of sine. So I'm really going to think of this as, well, I know sine of theta, if that's the reciprocal, has to equal 1 over 3.4124. And now that it's written in this format, well, heck, I've got an inverse sine button on my calculator. So now all I have to do is flip-flop my theta, or the unknown, and this weird fraction decimal looking thing over on the right-hand side. And in doing so, I'm going to use the inverse functions, which is what we see right there. Similarly with cotangent, that is the inverse of tangent. Or sorry, the reciprocal, not inverse, the reciprocal of tangent. That's why if we look over at our calculator screen, we're using tangent instead of cotangent. But inside, we have this 1 divided by aspect of things. So anytime you see 1 divided by your ratio or your decimal, that indicates that you're using some sort of reciprocal functions. All right, that's it and all for this lesson. This was, again, day 2 of Unit 3. So now that you have some background info, go ahead and take a stab at that page in the packet.